So we're here to talk about Black History Month. And so can you tell me about yourself? What's your name? Where are you from?
All right. So my name is Tosin, London, North London. I feel like I should really represent that part because no one really does.
North London, okay.
North London, yeah. Born in Berlin, parents are Nigerian, call myself a Londoner.
Okay. It's interesting you say you were born in Berlin. Do you remember anything about that, or were you raised mostly in London?
I was there till I was 8, 9. So I would say that majority of my teenage years and growing up was in London. Okay. But we used to go back most summers and stuff. So I still had a bit of, obviously I felt, as I got older, I felt less, in tune with the city.
Okay.
But when I was younger, when we would go back, I would kind of feel a lot more at home.
Okay. So it's interesting. You have the Black British experience, but also the Black German experience.
Yeah.
And also the Nigerian
experience. Yeah, which is why I call myself more a Londoner than a Black British, because I feel like a lot of people who are Black British tend to have both, like African and then the British.
Yeah.
I kind of grew up in Germany, and Germany's Black German experience is very, very unique because there's a lot less of them.
Yes. In
Germany, and a lot of them, to be fair, this is something I've seen from Europe. A lot of Black people don't hang out together like the Black Brits do here.
Yeah.
And
less of a community, maybe.
Yeah, and I definitely think we're lucky because majority of us live in one city, while in Germany we're all scattered around. So we have the little communities, but it's not the numbers that you have in London. Or it's for me, I live in North London, it doesn't have the biggest Black population here, but there's still enough that I still feel comfortable. But then when I go to South London, I'm yes, this is where I fully, can fully breathe. And a lot of them don't even have that. They can't, there's certain places of Berlin, they're just kind of there's no point of us going there. Yeah. Or there's certain places of the country. I mean, we have that here. There's certain places of the country that people are kind of why would I go? But there's enough of us that if we do go, if I went to Liverpool, for example, I know that there'll be Black people there. Okay. Or if I went to Manchester, I know that there'll be Black people there.
So for you as a Black Brit, or a Black Londoner, I should say, being somewhere around where you have community is important.
Yeah, I feel even if it's not the community you've grown up with, I think because of the Black British experience, it means that if the community that is around me is Ghanaian, for example, I have enough to still connect with them. Or if the community is from West Africa or East Africa, there's still enough interaction, there's still enough similarities that it will still kind of feel awkward sometimes, but you can still fit in, we have, I think this is one of the things that I'm loving to see, that the Black British experience is increasing, is that we're realizing that a lot of us have built this community because of this othering, we're not fully accepted in the UK, not fully accepted.
Yeah. So sometimes having that can be a bit of a balancing act, because I have African background and then East African background and British, so trying to balance those. So some people found it, sometimes growing up, it can be a bit of a struggle if you're somewhere where there isn't a big Black community, so fitting in, that kind of thing. So I think now we're seeing more of an emergence of Black British culture. Would you agree? And that now people are kind of stepping into it and really showcasing it a bit more?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I was growing up, because I can only speak for I see my siblings and stuff. When I was growing up, there was kind of a resistance for a lot of the time to be African. So I think that really hindered the Black British experience, because the Black British experience is not just the Caribbean experience, it's also the African experience. And as we started to grow up, and I think people started to learn more about their home countries and their parents' countries, and started to take more pride in that, I definitely feel like that has led to a bigger influence of Black British culture. And also just taking things from other places, like I have a lot of friends who are Ghanaian. Everyone laughs. It's because, like a lot of my friends are Ghanaian and one of the Nigerians, everyone's laughing because it's like Nigerians can't hang out together because it's carnage and stuff. But like, there's a lot of like Ghanaian culture that I started to incorporate in my own life that I didn't even realize. And there's a lot of, East African culture that you start to incorporate because we've realized that we're powerful together. And I think what we're doing is we're taking the best out of each country and then just making it our own.
And why do you think that's important in terms of British culture?
I think it's because, we have that balancing act of we don't really belong here, we don't really belong at home. And I think a lot of people have stopped trying to fit in both. And I think they've just gone, we grew up here, so like a lot of our mannerisms, a lot of the way we think, a lot of the stuff is very British, it's very British influenced. But then we still have our home cultures, we still have our parents and their cultures and stuff, and that then creates a whole new experience. And I think that really helps the identity crisis that a lot of people go through, because like a lot of kids now are growing up and seeing that, oh, this is Black British, and I was like, I can fully relate to this. I don't have the whole I don't belong here, I don't belong here. This is where I belong, this is my culture, this is something I can take pride in.
And we're seeing a lot of kind of successful Black British people, not just the way the music, they showcase music or sports. We're seeing people like, I think, Edward Enninful, the editor of Vogue magazine, for example, in fashion. We have people in tech, we have people in business, we have newsreaders. So it's incredible just to see that growth, really, and us trying to showcase them. So what does Black History Month mean to you? How important is it to you?
I think I kind of touched on it a bit. Like for me, Black History Month is just being Black British and us figuring out what our culture is and who we are as people, and realizing that you don't have to fight to fit in, you can just create your own. I think that is what Black British culture is for me. That's what Black History Month is for me. It's looking at an experience that is very Black British, from the 70s and 80s, and just seeing how it's evolved and seeing how, okay, the 70s did something, the 80s looked at some of the 70s stuff and it's like, okay, we don't really like this part, but we'll take this. And then the 90s, did the same thing at the 80s. They looked at that and was like, we don't really like this. And it's just kind of like that. We're taking the best bits of each year and just growing it. And I just think it's, like you're saying, that we're seeing such an emergence of, Black British culture in terms of across the board. And I think it's because we've now gotten to this point where we're super comfortable in being Black British, that we're kind of like, okay, we don't have to waste time on the identity crisis that a lot of us went through anymore, because we know who we are. And I think that's what Black History Month is for me, is showcasing to the rest of the UK, really, this is who we are. You can't get rid of us. We're staying here. And just pride. I think that's what it is. It's just pride.
What would you say to people who say that Black History Month isn't necessary?
I think
I see your eyes rolling. Okay, as in some people say, I've read some articles, people saying that it actually, segregates people, it's divisive. Obviously, I don't agree. What would you say to these people?
I mean, a lot of people think Black History Month this is the first time Black History Month is being around, and they think it's because of the Black Lives Matter movement. So that is my answer. People generally think it's something that has just started this year, which is why we need it. But not only that, I think what we're seeing as well is this change in what Black History Month is. I think when it used to be trying to shout out to the rest of the UK, look at what we're doing. Now I think people are going, you know what, if they're not going to listen to us, fine. We're going to showcase our community to our community so that the younger generation have something to look up to. The older generation are kind of like, our hard work is really coming through, So I think it really just depends. I think Black History Month, I don't think should be a month. I think it should be the whole year. But then also, a lot of companies don't do Black History Month well, which is why I feel like if it goes to a whole year, I think it's just going to be absolutely shambolic, because a lot of companies see it as Diversity Month. And if they see it as Diversity Month for one month of the year, what is it going to be like if we try to force it to be 12 months of the year? Like, are we really just going to be taking away all the progress that us as a community have made for us as a community? So that's kind of my answer, I guess.
So maybe we just shouldn't care about what they think, and just do it for us. And if you want to get involved, fine. If you don't want to get involved, that's on you. Yeah,
I think that's what it should be. I think it should, at this point, you know, be for us, and just, you know, people who will be interested anyway. And obviously through that there'll be people who learn every year. So that's one of the reasons why I still think it should, because people will always accidentally fall into it.
But I'm seeing that now in a lot of places. So I've been to some talks at the South Bank. There's the African Art Fair that I go to. It's called Africa 154 Art Fair, and you know, it's a very mixed crowd. So I think people are interested. I think you just have some people who, you know, like to criticize anything. But I think it's just like you say, the goal is this is to represent us, and I think the idea of it being a celebratory, so celebrating Black success and really what we do as a huge diverse community as well, because it's quite dangerous, isn't it, to kind of pitch in. We've got Jamaicans and Africans, but you know, the Caribbean is a big area. Africa, 54 countries. I mean, you know, so really making sure that we can, you know, learn a bit more, educate people if they're interested in and learning about it, but really showcasing what we do.
I think you touched on something there where you're talking about how, like, the Caribbean is very big, Africa is very big. I think a lot of people only think of certain countries, and I think Black History Month is, because I've probably done that as well. I've learned a lot from other countries just through Black History Month, of me going to this event that I have nothing to do with. But I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go because it's a free ticket, or the ticket's quite cheap and I'm not doing anything. So I feel like it needs to continue as this celebration. You know, I'm not too sure how it could do. Maybe one year, each year we focus on a specific country. I don't know how we can do it. But I do like the angle of it being a celebration. Because I think, you know, like you said, that it can become very pigeonhole very quickly. And I think we need to step away from that and actually be like, this is who we are as people. And you're seeing that as well, like even in our communities and our friendships, is like, you know, everyone is, you know, you tend to stick with like who you know, but everyone in their friendship has someone who's from Africa, someone from the Caribbean. You know, you already in your friendships you have that, and I think we should celebrate that and just really uplift that more than talking about like the bad stuff, because we hear it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So what would you recommend doing for someone who's new to Black History Month? Any particular events, anything that you particularly like doing?
I think it just really depends on what you want to do. I mean, sometimes I just say to people, like, I've been asked this question a lot, and I just say, if there is a, you know, if there's it's a theatre, if before COVID, but if there was like a theatre show going on in like, you know, a predominantly Black area, go and watch it, because that money is going straight to that community. You know, if you're at a food show, for example, go and try the Black foods, because that is independent vendors. You know, going to South Bank and watching the Black shows as well, you know, just actively seeking out, I was going to say actively seeking out the Black in any event you go to.
I think it's interesting because Black people are part of your community, but do you spend money in their businesses? Do you go and see their cultural events? You know, so I think it's important to really step out from the bubble sometimes.
I think that's why the Black Pound Day is really important.
Tell us about Black Pound Day.
So Black Pound Day is once a month on the first I think it's either the first of the month or the first Saturday, because obviously it doesn't always align, where people are encouraged to buy Black, and every month it sells out, and every month more and more organizations have been like, oh, we do this, and it's a great way for people to find stuff, because, you know, for me as well, like, I find it quite difficult because you're so bombarded. You're not bombarded with it, you know, you have to search for it, but Black Pound Day really just puts it on the spotlight. You know, I found a lot of amazing places and stuff from on there.
So I think you can go on to things like Instagram or Facebook and just hashtag Black Pound Day, and recommendations come up, don't they?
So recommendations come up. I believe there's a website as well called Black Pound Day, but there's a lot of different websites as well that are kind of like a dictionary, so like just for Black businesses specifically. And I think, you know, it's stuff like that where it's like, this is what, if you during Black History Month especially, this is where you should be supporting your money. And it's, you know, it's looking at organizations and seeing what they're doing, and looking at how they're connecting with the community, because London isn't London without the Black community. The Black community has made London what it is in terms of slang, in terms of styling, in terms of clothing. So it's just giving back, really, and just being like, thank you for how you've enriched this city, how you've enriched our lives, how you've, you know.
Yeah, and I think often sometimes communities of colour, not just Black community, can be some of the ones that are marginalised. Sometimes money doesn't stay in those communities for very long. So I think it is important to try and not just kind of consume culture, music, clothes, you know, and that money often goes to big organizations, but actually small businesses as well. Let's talk about food. What's your favorite either African or Caribbean dish, and are there any restaurants that you would recommend people to?
Okay, I'll start with the restaurants first. So 805 is one of the best Nigerian restaurants in the world.
805.
805, yeah.
Oh, 805.
Yeah. John Boyega's recommended it. He took the Star Wars lot to eat there.
I read about that. Okay.
Yeah. Now they've got queues. Ugh, John
Boyega recommendation.
I know, but that's how, you know, like, and there's one in Old Kent Road, which is Elephant and Castle.
Okay.
And it's just kind of like with Jamaican food, that's, I would say, is more my favorite Caribbean dish. But I started, my friend introduced me to Trinidad food before.
I've heard about Trinidadian food. It's really, really good. Yeah.
It's so good, and like, you know, I would say it's more suited to people who don't really eat meat. It's a very veggie, vegan heavy diet as well. In terms of African food, I love Ethiopian food just because I love the fact that you can share it, but it also shows how greedy people are. When it's like, you know, you thought you had an understanding of you'll take what you need, and then you have someone who's just taken half of it, and you're like, there's like 6 of us here, you've just finished half the meal. But I mean, in terms of restaurants as well,
Nigerian food, Caribbean food. So 805, yeah. Okay.
805 would be like my number one.
Okay, and then I'm going to go on to kind of literature and the arts, just for the final question. We have a big kind of Black presence now in terms of movies, series, for example. The rise of streaming services like Netflix means that you can actually find those a little bit more easily. Are there any either films or books by Black writers that you recommend?
I mean, I don't know. I can't remember. I know that there were some Black writers part of this, but one of my favorite films of all time, it sounds really bad, is Attack the Block. And it's just such a basic timeline. Aliens come and invade a state in South London. Yeah. But when I was watching it, I was just kind of like, oh my God, like, this is actually how we would act if aliens like came and like to our estates and stuff. And it's just such a heartwarming, you know, it's just so full of joy, that film. And I think South London has a really bad reputation sometimes, but I think it really flipped that over on its head, and was kind of like that reputation that keeps people away from that area is actually what saved everyone from the aliens, which again, when you say it out loud, sounds incredibly stupid. But I would honestly, if people are looking for just an easy watch,
John Boyega's also in that. So
yes, he is. There is a theme. I don't know if people have realised, but there is a running theme.
John Boyega is a theme in this conversation.
Yes, but it's, you know, and I love that. And then Rocks as well has just come out, and it's kind of like looking more at the Black women British experience, and that again, it's just really heartwarming. And
that's based in East London as well, which is really
it's based in East London.
So you recognize a lot of the, you know, kind of the areas and the way people speak.
Yeah. And that's kind of, you know, and in terms of books, I haven't really, it's really bad, and I am fully aware of it. Like, a lot of the Black books I read are American books.
Yeah, that's fine. But that's fine. Yeah.
You know, but I am starting to make more of an effort to actually read more Black British based books. Queenie is a really good book.
Yeah, that was one of the top sellers last year. I think it was shortlisted for a prize. So Queenie, which is very kind of female specific Black British experience. I think the good thing about these books is it shows that we're not a monolith. So I know some people loved it, some people didn't really love it, and it shows that Black people are very different. So my experience as a African woman, a British African woman, could be different from somebody else's experience, even as an East African woman, could be very different. And the same for West Africans, Caribbeans. So I think hopefully that will encourage people not to portray people in terms of stereotypes, and really bring all those nuances and differences, and just humanize people the same way other communities are humanized. So I think all the depths, all the differences, fabulous. So I think it's been a really interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Tosin, for participating.
Thank you for inviting me.
No problem.
Hi, John.
If John Boyega sees this conversation,
he would block me on Twitter.
Say hello. We're like, stalker. Yeah. But yeah, I think maybe just we can end by saying that I think the Black British experience is the British experience. We've had Black people here from the Victorian times. I was reading an article yesterday actually about Victorian Black people, Black Brits, and it's so layered, and it's so complex and interesting, and it's a bit like a quilt, a patchwork. We have so many different things that we put together that make British culture. So I think if we're going to say British culture is really multicultural and, you know, tolerant and inviting, then we need to showcase that a little bit more. So yeah, thank you so much for all the insights, all the tips, and hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.